What's wrong? Oh. Yeah, I was going to like sit down and so we are good. Okay. Okay, we are going to get started tonight. Sorry, we're starting a little late. So we had some unforeseen events happening. Before we do start the joint meeting for community development and finance, I'd like to take a moment and recognize a member of our audience. I'd like to recognize Mr. George Crossan on a milestone birthday that he recently had. We know we recognize his face. We see him out there at our committee meetings. We see him at our council meetings. He takes an active role in our city. We appreciate it, and it's always good to see his face. So we all would like to wish George Crossan a happy birthday. Thank you.
Happy birthday, George. Happy birthday, George.
Shall we sing?
All right, what's the number, though? What's the number?
Well, I didn't want to say it, so, but it's a milestone. So anyway, all right, we'll move on here. So we're going into the joint meeting, so I'll ask Mr. Stewart to please call finance.
I'll call finance order.
Okay, for the joint meeting with community development and finance, we have 6 items. First is the approval of the November 29th, 2021 joint meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 2 is the matter of authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Makovich and Pustai Architects. Safety Service Director or Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, chairs, and good evening, all committee members. This first item, and I know we got a lot of items, but this first item is the architect group that's been working with us even prior to my starting, to helping with the downtown vision for downtown, including some of the developers. They've most recently been helping us with the Midway Mall renderings that you've all seen, as well as the Oakwood initial renderings. So we've already engaged with them, but our request for 2022 was to enter into a larger contract, knowing what we have planned for downtown and Midway, and the need to have them ready. So when we have a project ready to go, we can call them up and say, hey, I need renderings adjusted for this here. And they've been very responsive, as you've seen some of the quality of their work as well. So that's what this is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I like it personally. I think that's being proactive, and it's a good idea. Are there any questions or comments from anyone on the panel? Law Director Deary.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just from my office, I just would like to let you know that we did recommend to the Safety Service Director and Administration that it was our opinion that appropriations be made for the amount of money that's being requested, and that each individual project have its own contract with a defined scope of service, rather that this type of retainer, open-ended contract be pursued. And so I just want to bring that to the committee's attention. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Law Director Deary. Mayor Whitfield.
Yeah, if you would like, just a quick response to that through you, Chair. This is similar to the agreements we have with our labor attorney, which as we engage her, she bills us. We also have this sort of agreement with our other legal counsel through McDonald Hopkins when we engage them and need them. So this is kind of just to make sure we don't have to, keep going through the loops on that. But I know Director Brubaker, you had something you want to add on that too.
There are a lot of projects, Mr. Chairman, that are going on, and I did have a conversation with the Law Director's office and shared that with the mayor about just taking the money, $100,000, and put it in professional service, but to come back to council for every project becomes cumbersome, because if you have a $20,000 project or we have to do this, we have to come before, and that could slow things down. So that's the reason why we're requesting it to be a contract as such.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a contract with Makovich and Puste Architects. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a said contract in the amount not to exceed $100,000, funds to be appropriated in the 2022 budget. Could I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell and seconded by Mr. Sarah.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by
Chairman.
Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tillett. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, item 3 is the matter of a donation to the Elyria Community Partnership Community Development Corporation. Assistant Director Calvert.
Good evening. We are requesting, if you'll recall, back in October, we were awarded a Nord Family Foundation grant of $100,000 to be used in support of the Elyria Community Partnership. And we are requesting, that money has been received by the city, and we are requesting that we forward that over to the ECP, our Community Development Corporation. So before we take any action, though, we did invite representatives from the ECP to join us tonight and provide a report. So tonight we have Board Chairman Mike Griffin, as well as Joel Ratner, our consultant on this work, and they can provide an update about what we've been doing and where we're going to go and how these funds are going to be used in 2022.
Yes, just for the record, please state your name and address of the corporation for the record.
Turn the mic on.
Push the button.
That helps.
Yeah.
So Mike Griffin, address is 1085 Gulf Road, Elyria.
Okay, go right ahead.
Do want to recognize also we have another board member here, Jacqueline Noga, who's also on the board. Of course, Joel, you've met before. So we did just want to update you as to what we've been doing. So we've had several meetings of the board already, 2 in person, 2 by Zoom. We've had several committee meetings. The governance committee is working on recruiting new board members, as we've discussed before. We've gotten a couple of recommendations from council. So again, we're still interested in any recommendations you would have for additional board members. The events committee is working on putting together a calendar of not only events that we're involved in putting on, building on the third Thursday, but also trying to figure out how we can be supportive and helpful to the other events that are going on and how we might sort of help pull that all together so it's all in one place. Also, our housing committee has been meeting with a group called CHN Housing Partners out of Cleveland just to talk about housing and what opportunities there could be for development, but also home repair and other opportunities, weatherization, things like that. We are working on trying to schedule a visit to another community development corporation as requested by council. We tried for December, but December was just a little too crazy. We're hoping to get something together in January. We've got 2 CDCs we're working with, so hopefully we can do some visits to those. Continue to look at downtown redevelopment possibilities. You know, there's obviously a lot going on in downtown, and again, how we can be helpful, how we can be engaged in that. We have submitted our 501, no, we have not submitted. We have the submission for the 501c3 status. The lawyer provided us a copy of that actually today. We're reviewing that, hoping to have it filed by Wednesday, and that would be retroactive back to the date that we were incorporated. Really, in next year, we're talking about 2022, so we are working to put together a strategic plan. We've got another group working on putting that together. We've identified a couple of consultants we might work with. None of us want to have a long, drawn-out strategic plan or consulting process, but it is important that we sit down and really highlight what it is we're going to work on, make sure we know what the focus is going to be. And certainly, City Council will be engaged in that process. And also working on budgeting. So again, we have this $100,000 from NORD that is coming through the city, hopefully. You know, as part of that, you'll recall there was a request for an additional $100,000 from the city. You know, again, we're hopeful and planning to work with you on how that might be structured when that becomes needed. And also looking at other grants, other philanthropic organizations. So certainly myself and Maggie Rivera, who's on the board, she works for U.S. Bank. I have a deep history working at Key Bank, so we do have a lot of banks that we can work with on funding. Joel also has relationships with banks, but also with other funders in the community to be able to get other funds into the organization.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Stewart.
Yes, Mr. Callen. I had spoken with Mr. Griffin a number of different times in regards to trying to schedule out of meetings where we can go to some of these different communities, which he mentioned. So we thought maybe with new members coming in of council, started the first of the year, we would try to organize that. And I'm encouraged by the 2022 year that's going to be happening here and the opportunities that kind of present themselves in the downtown. So if anybody knows of anybody, please forward that information on to them so that they can kind of get in contact with those individuals so they can kind of help get this process moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Oh, Mr. Tollett.
I'm sorry, I thought Mr. Ratner was going to speak. You don't have to go up. All I wanted to say is thank you. A while back, I asked for additional communication. What you have been sending is perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have anything else? Okay, seeing no further comments or questions, I will read the committee report. We considered the matter of a transfer of grant funds to the Elyria Community Partnership. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to transfer the said grant funds. Can I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry. Okay, just to be clear, Law Director Deary did indicate that this is actually considered a donation. Okay.
Just as a point of clarification, is that correct?
Through you, Chair, I don't know the legal definition. I'd have to rely on you on that, but the North Family Foundation made a donation, so yeah,
Correct.
we're passing the donation along, yep.
Okay, but there's no strings attached for us to then,
Yep.
to try to, okay, that's just what I wanted to make sure of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to transfer the said grant funds. Do I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by
Chairman.
Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tollett. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay. Item 4 is the matter of capital needs request from Neighborhood Alliance to provide basic needed support to low-income and vulnerable populations. Community Development Manager, Lee Stay.
Good evening. Is that better?
That's better.
All right. We've received a well-thought-out proposal from Neighborhood Alliance. There's a more complete package, but I put the main items into your bid, what is the proper name for that? Into your packet for tonight. Did you receive everything? Okay.
Yeah.
So it had schematics and diagrams, but the high-level view of this is Neighborhood Alliance is consolidating their headquarters into the old Y on Washington Avenue. There's space there to be able to consolidate their kitchens. From this kitchen, they would service all of their programs across the county, primarily the home-delivered meals to seniors, but also to the Haven Homeless Shelter and to their child care centers. They have laid out the current needs, which they are at capacity. We have people in our community not able to receive meals, even though Neighborhood Alliance has a source of ongoing support to pay for the food. They just don't have the capacity in the kitchen. So the request to us is $150,000 to help build out that kitchen and consolidate their operations into the building on Washington Avenue that was donated to them. They've also secured $500,000 from the Lorain County Commissioners in ARP funds.
Excuse me, you said $500,000 from what organization?
Yes, $500,000 from the county commissioners, and then the building itself from another donor.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mayor Whitfield.
And through you, Chair, the one thing that wasn't listed on here is that we would utilize the ARPA funds that we've set aside already for this initiative.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions? I see Mr. Oswald has his hand up.
Well, I just wanted to say that I think this is a no-brainer to give the money to help these people out. It sounds like they're heading in the right direction. The YMCA building, wasn't utilized for anything. They're over there now, and if they can help, more of these people countywide, that's great. I'm glad we can help out, and yeah, if we can use the ARP money, that's perfect. So I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will read the committee report. I don't think so, no. But thanks for asking. Okay, we have considered the matter of a request for the American Rescue Plan funds to be used for an essential services for Neighborhood Alliance. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to allow the said funds to be used as requested. Could I get a motion from community development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
Move so, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Baird, second by Mr. Todd. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Just one thing, excuse me, just point over to Mr. Plesky, will there need to be a companion ordinance to appropriate this?
That will be coming out of the American Rescue Plan, essential services. So we after tonight, if the amendment passes, we'll have $1 million in that line item.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Well, that's the way to do it. Okay, item 5 is the matter of increasing the ARP allocation for small business program funding and essential service program funding. Mayor Whitfield.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to the members of the committees. So we, through your support, we're able to allocate $500,000 for a small business program and for an essential service program earlier this year. We had deadlines for those two programs the first week of December, and to our surprise, we had much more need out there than what we expected. including for the small business program, we had over $1.3 million in requests from various small businesses. And we also, and the essential services had over $1.3 million in requests for essential services. So what we are requesting from this committee is to increase those programs both to $1 million so that we can try to support as many of the small businesses as we can in a meaningful way, as well as ensure essential services are provided in the city. On the essential service side of things, which is to handle more operationally, we are doing our due diligence right now on every applicant, and we've notified every applicant that they probably should not expect to receive full funding for what they requested, and we're making sure the money requested is going toward service and needs and not just overhead and sustaining an organization. So the community development staff is leading that effort and support from our office, and we're getting support from the small business program through the Elyria Economic Development Committee, which several of the council people sit on, and we just got out of a long round of interviewing businesses before this meeting. So we see the need is very clear out there for our small businesses. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions? Looks like Mr. Tollett.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. My question is the essential service program funding. One of the things at community development, are they making sure that we are not offering a redundant service? Something I spoke to earlier, and if you could address that point, that's a real concern of mine. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. I think that is something that's echoed with us since the CARES Act. Of every time we meet with someone, we're asking them, is there some other organization already doing this work that you could partner with versus you trying to do it? I think one of the other key pieces of this increase that we're asking for that I didn't mention is the emergency financial assistance. So for those folks who are struggling to pay their bills and need that emergency assistance, the Salvation Army is a part of that UCAN network that looks at all the resources available before they deploy our resources. So if the county already has something, they'll refer them there. If the state has something, they'll refer them there. But if there's a gap, as we learned in the last at the council meeting, those sort of gaps in the marketplace where there's no funding for those folks, that's where these resources can come in handy.
Okay. Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. To the mayor, what is the criteria that these businesses have to meet in order to get this money? Thank you.
Yep, through you, Chairman, and to you, Councilwoman Mitchell. So for the small business side, the regulations on the bill specifically speak to being able to demonstrate revenue losses as a result of the pandemic. So that is at its baseline of the program. So if you can show your 2019 revenue numbers and how they compare to your 2021 revenue numbers and show, hey, we've suffered this decrease, that's one way to support. Another is similar to the CARES Act in terms of if there's things you need to modify your business because of COVID, that if you can demonstrate that you have to modify that and what that cost is, that's another reason to support. But one thing that we saw a lot today in those interviews was the increase in cost that businesses are facing, whether that's food costs, oil costs, staff costs. That was one of the big things we saw today, was a lot of people are just faced with increased costs that they're struggling to keep prices low. And a couple of them were places I love to eat, and they were saying if we don't do something, they're going to have to raise their prices. So I'm hoping we can help them out.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I see Mr. Stewart.
I had a question, Mayor, on or to community development, the Life Essentials. Is the Neighborhood Alliance Senior Nutrition under the same umbrella as the Neighborhood Alliance?
Yes.
Child care? They're all under the same? Okay.
So Neighborhood Alliance is, the senior nutrition is the Meals on Wheels.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a request for increasing the allocation of ARP funds for the small business program. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to increase the said funds to be used as requested. Could I get a motion from community development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell. Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from finance?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by
Chairman.
Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, the sixth and final item for the joint meeting tonight is the matter of the Oakwood School emergency repairs. Discussion only for tonight. Mayor Frank Whitfield.
Through you, Mr. Chair. And so this is in regards to the Oakwood Elementary building that we acquired from the schools. And just wanted to give you all a heads up around, there's going to be some repair work that we're going to need to do early 2022 to try to keep that building from deteriorating. So right now, we've talked with Save Our Children, they came and presented to you all a while back about fully operating the building and them taking a whole leadership role and getting that place activated. And, you know, part of what I'm hoping to get from us as a city is for us to handle some of the infrastructure things like the roof, the windows, but leave the rest of the fundraising and renovations to them. So I just wanted to, before I ask came to you all, I thought to just put this on the floor with you all just so you had a heads up. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Has somebody gone over there and checked out the building and said, the roof is bad here, it's gonna cost this much, we got some windows leaking? Who's done the assessment, or can you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yep, through you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll defer to the Safety Service Director, because he engaged the staff in bringing someone out there, and what they found was that it wasn't worth doing patchwork. You know, when they went out there, they said, you'll be patching everything up, you're better off doing the whole roof, but I'll defer to the Safety Service Director.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, Chairman. I know Mr. Williams is working very closely with many entities out there, but I was asked for Mr. Schneider, who handles all of our maintenance on this building, police department, the fire departments, and Muni Court, to go out with Mr. Williams and take our contractors that we use for our roofs and whatnot out there to kind of assess the situation. And when I was on the school board, I know that the Oakwood roof had some concerns. They did some patchwork because they knew where they were building the schools. But Mr. Schneider took our contractor out there and reported back, as the mayor said, patching it will get us through the winter, but there's going to have to be some significant work done on the roof of that building. It is a flat roof. It has the drains up there. So you have to drain the water off through those drains. It's not going to run off due to being an angled roof or whatnot. But we believe we have a contractor that can do that and will give us our normal city pricing on it. We won't know that until they do a full assessment of the roof, what that cost is, but we wanted to make sure we understood what it looked like, what we were going to need to do moving forward. And then the windows, they're the old style windows, probably haven't been replaced since the 60s when they built them. So they're single pane windows. So we're going to take a look at, can we get some energy efficient grants? And what does that look like to replace those windows in there?
Mr. Oswald.
So basically, you're not asking for anything right now until you kind of assess it, and then you're going to come back and say the roof's going to be $300,000 and the windows are going to be $100,000. We're looking for this. Okay, and you're right. You know, you got to button up the outside, and I think I agree with you. Let the infrastructure go to them because they're going to design it the way that they want. So I think it's going to be a good partnership. You know, I've already had a couple conversations with Mr. Yost, and to be involved with a person like him and a contractor, it's a double yeah. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Mrs. Mitchell had her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I am a big proponent of this. The mayor was kind enough to let me tour Oakwood School, and it is in really bad shape. That our kids were in that school is disgusting, actually, but it is in really bad shape. But this will be good for the community. Save Our Children can use the building. We can partner with them and have our senior center, which Mrs. Davis and I have been really advocating for. So I think it's going to be good all the way around. And if we can find some ways to save some money, that's even better. So I'm a big proponent, though. Thank you.
Mrs. Davis.
Through you, Chair. So you're saying that this school isn't going to be under Park and Rec, you're going to let Save Our Children have this, and we're going to partner with them?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah, similar to how we do at the Arts Council, where the city owns the building, no one really knows that. They believe, the Arts Council, because they operate it, they make sure everything is clean in there. They pretty much take care of it, and they operate programs. It would be similar with Oakwood. We would own it. Any major repairs like roofs and things we'd take care of, but they'd be the day-to-day people operating in there. We really assessed based on what Parks and Rec has going on, as well as some of the other things we have going on. Them taking this on was just going to be a huge lift for them to try to manage at the same time as managing everything else. So when we talked to Save Our Children and shared, hey, would you be willing to not only fully operate this for Save Our Children, but this whole community idea we have around seniors as well, would you be open to continuing that? And they said, no doubt about it. They want to maintain that sort of seniors coming in and out because they think they could end up having some good intergenerational programming with seniors mentoring young people, as well as the fitness component as well. They want to stick with it. So they plan to come before you all in January to Save Our Children team to kind of share their vision and thoughts. But we just, again, wanted to just give you all the heads up that no matter what, this building has got some serious repairs, and hopefully we'll know how serious here in the next couple weeks or month.
Thank you, but I just want to make sure through you, Chair, that we don't want this to get away from our seniors, because I see the direction it's heading, and I'm not happy, but this is our senior citizens building. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Are there any other questions? Concerns, comments? Okay, well, this will be ongoing, and like you said, there'll be some folks here in January to discuss it with us. I do have one question for the mayor. A potential timeline to possibly have this all done. Are we looking like fall of 2022?
Yeah, to you, Chairman. So, Save Our Children's goal is to move in this by the next school year.
Okay.
So their goal is to get all this stuff, worked out so that by next school year, when school kicks off and their after-school program starts, they're operating out of there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Stewart.
So part of the agreement, I believe, with the schools was that they're going to remove a lot of the materials, tables, chairs, books. Has that been kind of identified? Has that taken place, or is?
I'll defer to Director Williams.
Yes, through you, President. So yes, those things have been taken care of. Actually, the schools, we worked out with them to modify the expectations of the agreement. And so we took Save Our Children through the building, identified and marked all the items they wished to be left there because there were some very usable things there. And then we were with the schools, and they removed everything else. So right now, what's in the building are only the items that were desirable, that could be utilized. That has been taken care of. Actually, I think our folks have been on the roof, and they've cleaned off the debris and are working on the gutter issues in terms of their internal drainage. And so it's pretty much in motion. We just need to make some decisions about how we treat it in the winter with heat and all those pieces. But yes, those items have been removed. And in any time any of you would like to go visit, we would love to take you and walk you through it. So we do have before and after pictures. But I think, as you're right, it was in pretty poor condition, but there's a great opportunity. It's not so depleted that it's a money pit. I think it's going to work out really well. So thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. So it looks like no further questions. This was a good discussion to have. We know this is going to be here early next year. So thank you, Mayor, for bringing this to our attention. Other than that, there's no further business for community development. So I would accept a motion to adjourn community development.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Community development is adjourned.
Finance Committee.
Do you need a recess?
Yeah. No.
Okay, we're going to continue on with finance. Just so for the record, we're going to have item 6 moved to the end of the agenda. So first item on the agenda is the approval of the finance meeting minutes for November 29th, 2021. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 2, we've considered the matter of a Muni Court Microsoft license and maintenance contract for the Muni Court video system. An ordinance authorizing the said contracts for Muni Court, $17,900 for the Microsoft licensing and $4,200 for the maintenance contract. Note these items are included in tonight's appropriations. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Gillette, second by Ms. Davis. Who's speaking to this?
Table.
Nobody's here from the courts? Mr. Finance Director, can you kind of, for this
Through
one?
you, Mr. Chair, the only thing that I know is earlier council appropriated monies in the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, the revenue replacement category, to finish their computer program, computer hardware project, and they forgot to include in the licenses that they need for the software. So I believe the total, as you mentioned, is $21,200 or?
There's two separate. One is for the license, the Microsoft license of $17,900 and $4,200 for the maintenance contract. So it must be just some additional costs that they didn't.
So we are, that additional is in the amendment to the 2021 permanent appropriation before you tonight,
Okay.
in the ARPA fund.
ARPA fund. Okay.
It was included.
So basically it just appears that it's just some additional fees that they didn't anticipate, and now we're taking care of that. Is there any further discussion on that?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 3, we've considered the matter of virtual training for the police department through Axon Enterprises, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 5-year agreement for the said training program. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Ms. Davis. Chief Falco.
Good evening. So I'd like to enter into a contract for $53,000 with Axon Enterprise. So we currently have our tasers through them. We're very happy and satisfied with their product and their company. This virtual training will give us a couple virtual training units which the officers can wear to help us train. It'll put the officers through shoot, don't shoot, de-escalation situations, use of force situations, a bunch of different scenarios. And the main thing that I like it for is the community engagement aspect of it. They will have scenarios dealing with the mental health, with people with Alzheimer's, people with autism. This is something we've never seen before. These virtual reality trainings will actually put the police officer in the perspective of the victim, of the client, so they can understand what they're going through when the police show up. I've had my firearms instructors, my self-defense instructors, my taser instructors all go through a demonstration with this, and they all gave me a thumbs up and said, this is something we need. This is great training. Part of the good aspect about it is we'll get new content every month. They'll send us new scenarios every month so we can train on different scenarios every month. We have the ability to change the time of day, the weather, the race of the individual, the sex of the individual. The person training them will be able to coordinate the training based on the reaction, based on what the police officer is doing in the virtual training. This is going to help us out. Currently, we were going to a place where it was costing us, I think, around $8,000, and the officer was going through only like 2 scenarios. They had to drive there, so this is going to cut down on our time. We'll have it at the police station. We can pull a guy off the road to do it. We can put our new hires through it. We can have our annual training with it. If we have an issue where we think training needs to be addressed, we can go ahead and use this to help us become more efficient in that. So if there's any questions, I would like to entertain those right now.
Any questions for Chief Falco? Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So you got all this training. Do you make sure that all the police, everybody goes through it, or do some of them, there's partial, you have to do this, you have to do this, or if they did something wrong, they didn't handle a situation, they had to go through, how do you work all that?
So it would be mandatory that all of our officers would have to go through this. What happens is when we get a new hire, then we would put them through it as well. If we saw a need for an individual, like if we had an individual who was having more use of forces than the other officers, we would then address that with them, and this is something that we would use to put them through some more training scenarios to better themselves with that. But yes, every police officer would have to do it we believe making it like an annual training they would have to do it. The good thing about this is if there's an instructor working on the road and we're slow, they can pull that individual off the road and just do it just for extra training when we're slow.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, training, education, that's, this is what we're dealing with right now. If we can get some of these scenarios kind of taken care of, we won't have the big issues down the road. Thanks.
Very good. Any other questions for Chief Falco? Hearing none? Can I call for the question?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 4, we consider the matter of an agreement with ODOT to perform micro surfacing on State Route 57. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter said agreement with ODOT. Can I get a motion and get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the past few years, we've noticed just southeast of Abbey Road on State Route 57, an uptick in accidents and various types of accidents. So I reached out to ODOT and to discuss, ways to make the road a little safer, add some more items out there that would help keep people's maybe eyes on the road, things of that nature. They went out there and used their skid trailer to perform a friction test on the roadway, after doing the whole assessment, they came back with a recommendation to move forward with a safety application to apply for funding to try to make these improvements. The improvements include both microsurfacing, which would require, about a year ago, ODOT did the microsurfacing on State Route 57 at all the intersections. Those are the areas that you saw the black pavement change to help with skid control, things like that. And so they also looked at some other items we could do, signage, which we've already done in-house prior to all this, but other things like install raised pavement markings. So those would be like the reflectors you would see on the center lines that would show the lane as it turns. Install some rumble strips on the edge of the road. So if you have a distracted driver who's not totally paying attention, if he goes off the road, it would alert him to get back onto the road. Things of that nature. And they've also requested that we participate in the cost a little bit. They've said anywhere from 10 to 20% would be great. It's not required, but you get more points if you participate, and therefore you have a better chance of getting your project done. The limits of the project are essentially, as I said, near the Abbey Road intersection. It would be the entire curve from south of Abbey to the other side of Abbey, so to the north side of Abbey. So the entire curveway all the way through the intersection would be included. And that would, like I said, include these type of items to help improve safety of that the intersection there.
So, Mr. Schneider, so I think you and I maybe spoke about this the last time they did this. So is it only when you're coming up at stopping at a light and doing it? Does it mean you're going when you get through the intersection? Because I think, if I remember correctly, as you're going through, for example, on State Route 57 heading in a westbound direction, you go through the light as it crosses Broad Street, there was a bump there. So, but you're not stopping, you're just kind of going with the flow of traffic. Is it only as you're approaching the light in these areas, or is it?
The areas that ODOT took care of prior were just at the light where you would actually decelerate your car at the red light. This will include not only those locations, but advance it further through the entire curve. So if you're familiar with the aerial, there's quite a large radius out there for that whole intersection. It actually goes through the intersection to the other side. So it's about 1,100 to 1,300 feet on each side of the intersection that would be looked at, as well as microsurfaced.
Okay. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. Chair. First question, how long was the first ones that they started doing this? Was it a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago, they did all the intersections.
Okay.
On State Route 57, just the through lanes though.
Okay, and at that time, I was under the understanding it's for these big trucks. It makes them stop easier when they're getting into an intersection. And actually, they are holding up and wearing very well. So that microsurfacing, which I never knew even existed until we got it, and now we're doing it, I think it's a great product. So, yeah, if we can get it for next to nothing, let's go for it.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question, did that include any type of commitment from the city?
Does the committee want to contribute? I guess that would be, if we say 10%, I guess that would be $20,900.
10%.
Where would that come from? The
Muni motor vehicle or?
Muni motor. Okay, does that have to be identified as for the ordinance, or is that something that we can line item that now, Mr. Pileski, or?
You can put in there Muni Motor Vehicle Tax Fund, Muni Motor Vehicle Tax Department, Capital Outlay Account.
Okay, does the motion concur?
Concur.
Does the second?
Yes.
Second concurs. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. I think it would be 20,000, 10% match. Item number 5, we consider the matter of a part-time wage scale to reflect the federal minimum wage, which goes into effect January 1st of 2022, an ordinance authorizing, an ordinance amending the wage ordinance to reflect the minimum wage increase. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Mr. Tolet. Ms. Yusefi.
Thank you. Good evening. We're looking at changing the part-time minimum wage scale so that where you're reflecting a change from $8.80 to $9.30, we're moving all of those steps and up 50 cents to complete an equity adjustment for all of the employees that have been in here. This really affects our Parks and Rec department.
Okay. Kind of a standard that we kind of go through when this is applied. Is there any further discussions in regards to this?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Does this need to be an emergency, Ms. Yusefi?
Yes.
Emergency needs to be in place. Does the motion concur?
Yes.
As does the second?
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Typing sucks. Next item is we've considered the matter of a contract with Macaulay and Company for writing and managing grants and ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter said contract for an amount not to exceed $100,000. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor? Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tollett. Director Brubaker?
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Macaulay from Macaulay Associates is here for any questions. As a part of a referral, I put together a prospectus of some of the items that his organization has helped with. Last year, when the mayor appointed me Safety Service Director, I started attending weekly Zoom calls with Justin and his partner Shannon, where every Thursday we get together, we talk about the grants we have in process. We talk about new grants that are coming up. They've also engaged with our department heads, Mr. I, who we got the recycling grant with earlier this year. There's a grant on the docket for tonight that he's worked with the fire department on. So they've done a lot of very good work. They've got us about $844,000, as you see in the prospectus, of grants that they were able to secure with us. They do all the grant writing. They do all the research. They communicate with the finance director's office, my office, Mr. Williams, and the department heads to get information to include in the packets for the grants. We've been very successful with him and his organization, and we've got a lot of good things on the docket coming forth, particularly in the first quarter of 2022. So it's been a very good resource for the city. We currently don't have anybody in-house that can do the type of work that they are doing. Last year it was $96,000. It's $8,000 a month. We increased it by $4,000 for additional costs for travel now that they'll be out and traveling due to COVID. Of course, hopefully things don't go south again with that. But that's kind of where we're at, and Mr. Macaulay is here to answer any questions or also to give any input from his end.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Mr. Macaulay, are you welcome? Are we helping out with the ARPA funds? Are we associating with that as far as, you know, what our policies are? Are we in line with those policies? Or have you been overseeing that as far as that goes, or is that just something with the finance director's office and the safety service director and administration? Are they overseeing that as well, or what is your role there? Yeah, the green button should come on.
Sorry, thank you. Certainly supporting the administration and the finance director with ARPA funds and just general awareness of compliance requirements, reaching out to Office of Budget and Management in Columbus for advice, counsel on what's appropriate and how to account and allocate some of those funds, but want to be clear, not overseeing it, just providing support to the city's team.
Sure. And for the record, Mr. Macaulay, could you please state your name and address?
Absolutely. Justin Macaulay, just moved, 19660 Roslyn, Rocky River, 44116.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, first off, I think your job is worth weight in gold, you know, if you're good at it, and for what we pay you, if you can save us money. So do you actually search out, or does somebody here in the city say, hey, you better check on this? I mean, is your company the one that goes out and actually searches for everything?
All of the above. So we, on a weekly basis, we have a process where we search through a federal database called grants.gov. It's managed by the federal government. And there's a state platform that's similar. And so we're looking for grants that are going to be a match at some level based on our now 2-year-long engagement with the city of Elyria, based on our understanding of the city's needs or capabilities. Then typically we will float those at the Thursday afternoon meetings that Director Brubaker was talking about a moment ago, and explain what is included in that grant, what would be required for that, timeline, et cetera, and then determine next steps. Do we reach out to a manager or someone else on staff how shall we move forward? So we're looking for those, but also there are plenty of scenarios where there are funding opportunities that are brought to us, and, here's a grant program that we want to go after, or a project will be brought forward that needs to be funded. Just got an email over the weekend from Mayor Whitfield about a $350 million State of Ohio pot of funding for brownfields and demolition. Every county in Ohio will get $1 million set aside from that, and then the remainder is up for grabs, first come, first served. And I was talking with Director Calvert shortly before the meeting about the city of Illyria's opportunities there, and so we'll connect tomorrow, and we want to be one of the first that are in that chute so that we can pull some money out of it.
Okay.
Well, I guess I appreciate what you do, the consulting part and the jobs that you do. We want to make sure that we're getting our money's worth, and when you're staying on base every Thursday and going over something, that's showing me that, yeah, you are staying connected and our money is going for good cause, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good. Is there any other discussions in regards to what's being proposed in front of us? Okay, if not, the question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. McCauley.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody in person.
Yep. Next on the agenda, we've considered the matter of a contract with Ratzel and Andrews for labor-related issues for the year of 2022. In order to authorize the mayor to enter said contract in an amount of not to exceed $100,000. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
I'm sorry, point of order, it was $150,000. So moved by Mr. Tolet.
So moved.
Second. Second by Mr. Baird. Mr. Brubaker.
Give me that extra 50 there, I was getting a little worried.
No, is this man keeping everybody on their toes?
So this is our labor council that we have been using for the last number of years. Obviously, we're in the middle of contract negotiations. We've settled with FOP. We're, hopefully after tonight, we'll be settling with AFSCME. We still have EPPA and the fire IFF yet this year. I don't know that we'll get under contract before the holidays, so we have that looking forward to next year. And then outside of some other arbitration that we have going on that'll happen middle of next year, we're hopeful. We did come in under budget this year with her, so we were thankful for that. She was, her organization, particularly Susan, was very helpful with us with the fire department issues that we were dealing with, and this is just a continuation of our relationship with her organization.
Exactly. Is there any further discussion in regards to it? Question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item, we consider the matter of applying for and accepting a grant for an assistance to the firefighter grant AFG to purchase an ambulance/rescue squad. In order to authorize the mayor to apply for and accept that grant at a 10% match. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet, second by Ms. Davis. Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Yes, and then I will defer to Chief Pernesi. So this was one of the grants that was laid in our lap several weeks ago from Macaulay and through working with Chief Pernesti. This is going to give us an opportunity with no guarantee, and we've not been real successful with the AFG grants for equipment the last couple of times. You know, we applied for some equipment, we applied for a ladder truck, some personnel, and we didn't win any of those grants as it's very competitive. This is going to allow us to apply for a grant for an ambulance, rescue squad for lack of a better word, more of an ambulance for transportation purposes for our fire department. This grant is due here in the next week or so. We will not know until end of March, early April whether we get it, and then we've got about 6 to 9 months wait before we could probably get a piece of equipment on staff. The chief will go in a little bit more detail. We have been in conversation over the last number of months with Life Care in regards to providing some support and backup. Please keep that in mind. It's very important that you understand that, to support and back up Life Care when they are, with the number of calls, and again, the chief will talk about this, the number of calls that they are going on in the city limits is up. They are supplying, although we were a little concerned earlier this year, they are supplying the squads that are needed, but due to the uptick of cases and issues going on in the city, we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to supply a backup unit for them in the city of Elyria. So with that being said, I'm going to defer to the chief. That was kind of our take on it from the administrative side of things. It is not to replace Life Care or what Life Care does. They are a commodity. They are an asset. They are a city-based program in the city, but it is a support, and we did have support, and the former CEO did write a letter of support with Macaulay to submit for this grant in support of this opportunity. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer to Chief Pronesti.
Chief Pronesti. Good evening. We're at a crossroads. We have really, the amount of call volume in the city is unbelievable. I come every month. I tell you that. It's no joke. It's getting worse now. We thought COVID was behind us, but it's not. So we saw an uptick in mutual aid requests by Life Care. Every city that surrounds us and touches us runs an ambulance service out of the fire department. When Life Care was unable to provide an ambulance in the city of Elyria, they were calling mutual aid to Elyria Township or Sheffield Village and also Sheffield Township. As of tonight, there have been 32 calls for mutual aid assistance that Life Care's called other fire departments to come in and transport. When they do that, there's a delay, and then also one of my engine companies that are responding first with paramedics are sitting there waiting for an ambulance. So I approached Mr. Richards about this, and what it also is happening is that the fire departments, while they're not saying no, they're not as obligated to provide mutual aid to Life Care as if I was calling if I had a big fire in Broad Street. We have a mutual aid contract that it's mutual. A lot of times, those two entities, Sheffield Township and Elyria Township, if they're exceeding the call volume into the city, they're at a disadvantage. Their people or citizens are at a little bit of a risk. So I approached Dave Richards and I said, well, let's look at this and see. An ambulance would be just a backup. Right now, Life Care has 3 squads that are dedicated to the city of Elyria. And the other thing that we're seeing an uptick in is what we call overlapping runs, or double hits, triple hits, which means over a period of an hour or two, the number of calls that come in at the same time. Right now, 34% of our EMS calls, or our overall calls, are overlapping. So 34% of the time, we have more than one engine company out on an EMS call. That means that Life Care, in turn, is overlapping also. So this is a thought that if one of our citizens needs transport, and instead of waiting for Elyria Township, North Ridgeville, Sheffield Township, I got paramedics. All I need is an ambulance. It's not the we don't have the people to do what Life Care does. Okay, so let me be clear. I'm not saying that I can run an ambulance service for 56,000 people with 14 firemen on duty. I can't. This is a backup to when they are out of people in ambulances, which is occurring more this year than ever before. I will say ambulances are higher up in selection process, if you will, for FEMA. So there is a much better chance to get this grant than, let's say, the ladder truck that was put in for last year. Your fire apparatus has to be like on a tow truck, okay, to get a FEMA grant for fire apparatus compared to this. I'm here for questions.
So Chief Prenesti, how much will a vehicle cost, or estimating what it would cost?
Right now, I've priced about $360,000 for a heavy-duty ambulance. I considered the idea of replacing our current rescue truck with a vehicle that could do both. It's a lot tougher than what I thought it would be, so we're basically looking at strictly a ambulance, but it would be heavy-duty, a little bit heavier duty than what you see. Life Care has to be more along the line if you see in the suburbs.
So it's you're estimating $360,000 just at a first blush at this, and then what about to outfit it? Would that be on top of that, or is that everything 360 is outfitting it?
There would be more cost to outfit it. I have been in contact with another entity that has said that they would, I'll defer to the director on this, but that there's another entity that said that they would assist us in equipping the ambulance.
Okay. Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. President. Two questions. What would the city's portion, what would the city be responsible for? Can you get a little bit more into detail with that? Go ahead.
So let's just say the total's $400,000, 10%. So $40,000 would be the city's cost to provide an ambulance. And look, equipment-wise, I have to narrow things down a little bit. Right now, the grant would allow for some very expensive equipment to be purchased, what's called a Lucas device, which is basically a automated CPR device. So our guys aren't doing CPR. This device does it, that most ambulances have. Power lift cot, those things can be purchased along with the grant. So we would put in for the ambulance along with some of that equipment that would be part of that. So as far as equipment, I would say if we were to say another 100,000, I think we'd be in the ballpark. But like I said, I'm not saying the city would have to come up with that. I have to do some more work. And like I said, I've had other entities say to come on board.
And then the second part of the question is, how would you know when to use, when to respond? How would that, I hope that question makes sense.
Yeah, right now, without having to move resources in, Life Care can handle 3 squad calls in the city. The way this would work right now, if the ambulance backed into a bay tonight, we would handle the 4th call out for service. So if there were 4 calls for service all at once, or if their 3 squads are unavailable, our squad would be the 4th squad out. Now, I anticipate, obviously on most of the calls we have an engine there. The engine is there. Fire department squad shows up, transfers the care to the hospital. It goes, frees up my engine.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, how would this work with the firemen? So you have a couple of them that's qualified as paramedics, and you're already short. So how can you use?
Well, right now I can't. Okay, right now with what I have, I can't. But working with the director, finance, the city, we're beefing up. We're hiring firefighters as fast as they're giving them to me. Right now we have 9 that have accepted conditional letters of employment. We just today worked with civil service to put together lateral transfers like the police. So the bottom line is this: by the time I'm talking to you next year and wishing you a Merry Christmas, I hope to have about 71 firemen compared to the 50-some I have right now. That being the case, the more I have on shift, that I would be able to run that ambulance. I could not do it right now. I want to make that abundantly clear. I cannot do that right now. And this would be a backup. So Life Care is still providing the service. But when they run out, which is happening now more than ever, who's the city going to turn to? I want the city to turn to my people and my department to take care of our own.
So if offered and, you know, we are awarded this, when would this go into circulation? It'd be 2023?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we're thinking end of April, end of March, early April, we would be notified if we got it. And then we would come back. We've already got the approval to if council chose to do that. We would advise council of that, and then we would also know what the price is going to be between now and then of exactly what we're looking at, because we would have to appropriate the 10%. Based on other vehicles that we're looking at, I'm not sure how fast they could. Squads are typically made to order, like our fire engines. I don't know if we would find a base unit sitting on a lot somewhere. I would say if we had something by this time, 2022 or going into early 2023 would probably be when we would get something like that.
Well, one other thing that this will do is that it's not just for those kind of emergencies. You know, this could be utilized for events. You know, the fireworks, we'd have our own ambulance standby. Apple Festival. One of the things that we work in conjunction with EPD is whenever they do any kind of raid or they use their SRT, I have paramedics that go with their special response team. Well, now I have an ambulance standing by for that police officer, God forbid, or a victim, or, you know, whoever, they're, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter, citizen that needs help. So we would have it at that. Any kind of standoffs. I believe the police call Life Care for a standoff. If they're busy, rather than have another fire department come in, you'd have an Elyria Fire Department squad.
I have another question, or two actually. So this will only be servicing, if we move forward, would this only be servicing Elyria residents?
Well, I would start it out that way, okay? But one thing to remember, you know, if it's not staffed, it's out of service. If it is staffed and another municipality calls for mutual aid, we have an agreement to supply mutual aid. They come to our aid. They've come to our aid a lot in the last few years. So we have to be able to do that. So right now, I would say I would keep it to just where it's, you know, for an Elyria resource, but it's all about keeping it, getting it, if it's staffed, it's staffed. If it's not, it's not. It's just another piece of fire apparatus with a cot in it. And, you know, Life Care was supportive. Mr. Richards was supportive of it, you know. I mean, he was all over it, and I think the director can concur.
And the other question was, Chief, is what calls were we, initially when we were kind of going on with Life Care before, are we going on every call that they just can't respond to, or what is it? Is there a certain level of that we're going to?
Right now, in a nutshell, whenever someone calls 911 and says, having a tough time breathing, bingo, it's COVID time, okay? So we're getting tons of those. Any kind of breathing difficulty, person's not breathing, overdoses, any kind of cardiac issue, trauma, stabbing, shootings, motor vehicle accidents with injuries. It's probably easier for me to say we go on everything, but people calling saying they don't feel well without giving any kind of general description, that, and any kind of psychiatric calls. So when the police go on a psychiatric type of emergency, or they need to transport somebody to the hospital, we don't go on those kind of calls, but we go on just about every other criteria because we can get there fast.
Mr. Oswald?
Well, I was just gonna make a comment. You know, you come up here and you always tell how many numbers, and the numbers are so big that are coming up. So I guess I don't live in the real world, and I just can't imagine how many people you're picking up on calls. Until I had a conversation with somebody in my wards he's an older gentleman. He had to go about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They picked him up, they took him to the hospital. The ambulance sat in the parking lot there because they couldn't get him into the hospital because it was so jam-packed. And so they're getting them in a waiting room, and then only the ones that can't breathe, they put into the room. So I guess it is a real mess that, you know, it just, because it doesn't hit home for me until I heard that conversation that he had. You know, it's not good.
You're right, and it's not just COVID. What's happening, and I'm sure the Chief Falco can attest, is that we have an entire generation now that knows that when they are in trouble, they are to call 911. And that's us. And we can't decipher on the phone to a citizen when they call 911. We can't sit there and go, well, this. No, we gotta go. We gotta go and figure it out. And it's just, you're right. The healthcare system and the hospitals are just incredibly swamped, and it's fallen back on fire departments, not just in Elyria, all over the country.
Any other? Mr. Baird?
Yeah, just curiosity. What kind of life do these vehicles have? You know, I know most of the fire engines and stuff for 10, 15 years and so on.
This
probably further? Who knows?
Yeah, because this is a backup. You know, right now, there's been 32 calls that Life Care has asked for assistance from other municipalities with. So if we had this ambulance from January 1, it would transport 32 times. But one other thing that I really would like it for is that every time there's a working fire in the city, and there's a lot, we have to have an ambulance standing by for our own people. And that would guarantee me, plus it would free up Life Care to not sit there for 2 hours because they can't just leave. And so that would free up that squad to go on other calls. So this thing would do a lot, but it would last way longer than an ambulance that would be running its wheels off.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted you to verify it because when you start talking about the cost, it sounds like a lot. But if you amortize it over that time of period, it's not a big deal.
No.
Thank you.
So if we move forward with this, does the 10% need to be allocated now, or if we're awarded it at that time, Mr. Brubaker or Finance Director Pulaski? And where would that funds come from?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that that can be determined at a later time.
Okay.
I would concur, because like I said, the grant is due on the 17th, and I know council, full council, if this body were to vote for it, it's due Friday.
Sure.
This is one of those things that gets late, and our lab council won't vote till Monday, provided it comes out of finance. We won't know till end of March, 1st of April. I would ask, if I don't know that I put this in my referral, I would ask that it's under suspension and emergency because we're dealing with the situation that's due Friday versus full council voting on Monday, as long as the law director would concur with that. But we would not have to appropriate the dollars until then, and we would have a really good idea, working with somebody who supplies this on a delivery time, and because if this body chooses to approve it, then Chief Pernesti can go and start speccing out a squad, and we'll have a pretty good idea by the time we get this grant of what that would look like.
Okay. Very good. Is there any further questions from the committee?
We're also not obligated.
Right.
I checked that out today. So the thing is that we're on the deadline to get the grant in by December 17th. If things don't work out and we're awarded it, we can say thank you, but no thank you. But it's just a matter of getting it in.
Right. Thank you, Chief.
Question.
So So the emergency,
I apologize.
so the emergency, does the motion concur with the emergency measures?
Yeah.
So does the second. All right. Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Chief. Item number 10, the matter of a discussion of the first quarter projects for the Parks and Recs Department. Mr. Brubaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a part of, I believe the mayor had sent some information out on some of the parks projects for the issue 6 capital that Parks has. I know it's a part of the appropriation that Director Pileski will have. When I talked to the mayor before he left, he just wanted to make sure that this was out there on what those projects were. I'm not sure that the body needs to pass any legislation on this because it will be passed as a part of the appropriation here. But if there's any questions on any of these projects, I would be happy to touch base with council on that.
Yeah, I know that the mayor sent out a link, and I know that I was unable to open the link on one of them, and I think a second link was set out. So I don't know, does everyone have that information in front of them?
Not the second link.
No.
I can go over these real
If
quick.
you could, just briefly,
Yeah, sure.
and then if there's ways that we can make, I don't know if that's a substantial copy that you have there, but.
And this has been something that's worked with Director Reardon, who is out on protocol for a little bit. But these are all part of issue 6 parks money that they get, not the issue 6 capital that we supply to other departments. So the West Park Trail, which is in process, the matching money for West Park. There's the mobile movie screen is out there, which is a kind of a carryover from 2021, the same as the dog park. So for 2022, there's some paving on there for North and North Rec, as well as the Low Street part of West Park. The South Elyria Pocket Park that the organization was here a week or two ago is on there. Air conditioning for West and East Recreation Centers. PM or preventive maintenance for HVAC for our centers. Widening of the maintenance drive to the filter building. Facility repairs at South and West. Locker room at North with additional storage. Our hockey program and the skating program and the stuff that's going is just ballooning out there, so they're looking for additional space. Playground at North Rec, which is going to be paid for eventually out of a grant, $56,000. Playground at Abbey Road Park. I will throw this out there. That's Brubaker Memorial Park. That's the park I grew up at, so I appreciate help there. Playground at Bell Avenue. It's a tot lot. East Park Pavilion walkways. The crack seal restriped basketball courts at South and Hilltop. And then the rollover of the 2020 POs. So those are some of the projects that they're looking to accomplish in 2022 with their issue 6 capital. And again, that is a part of the appropriations that Director Pileski will be bringing forward as a part of the temporary appropriations so we can get some of these projects moving forward.
So with that being said, is there any initial conversation? Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Mr. Brubaker, you mentioned a mobile movie. Can you expound on that, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is actually a carryover rollover from 2021's project. It looks like it's about $28,000. It's so they can do movies in the parks. So they can take this video screen and move it to the different parks in the city and have movie nights.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Oswald?
I know I get to talk a lot today, but there's a lot of projects, okay? And to me, I'm getting bothered by some of the projects that have been stagnant and not finished. You know, first off, we've had a dog park over there on my ward on Gulf Road in Burns, that's been delayed. I don't know how long. I keep getting answers like, yeah, we didn't get the signage yet. Well, why not? We didn't get the water in yet. Why not? You know, that was just one project. Another project that's been stagnant and had problems for a long time is East Park Pavilion. Now, that lumber has been sitting there for almost 2 years. And I know they had a problem with the contractor, but you got, and this is great, we're gonna do all these projects, but if they need more help, I don't know where they're gonna get it, if, you know, another department can help out, but I just, you know, it's great we're doing the projects, but we're not finishing the projects that we have. So something's gotta go on so they can get these things taken care of.
Through you, Mr. President, and I would concur with you, Councilman Oswald, that we've been slow to get some of these done. And I've put together a team that the mayor authorized me to do using our engineering department and bringing some of these entities together and see what we can do in-house versus contract out. But yes, that is a concern we have, and these projects that are sitting out that are stagnant will get completed. But we'll be working with the engineer's office for additional support on making sure we get these things moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Just one last question, comment to Mr. Brubaker. The trail at West Park, it was supposed to be done for the fall of this year, and I get it, it's not. But I want to make sure that that trail gets done. I want to make sure that there are benches on that trail. We can, and I'm happy to help with this, we can get donations to do the benches. I'm willing to donate a bench. So I really want to get that project going.
And through Mr. Chairman, since I live on the west side now, I would agree with you on that. But I know that the engineer's office, particularly Mr. Forthover, was big in, you know, getting the benches and whatnot taken care of out for the fountain. And we'll be working with the engineer's office to make sure, and we'll have you involved in that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Good conversation. Thank you very much. And there's an additional conversation or question that you have, you can talk to the mayor or, you know, email him and just kind of get some clarification on what his thoughts are. We can consider the matter of amending Ordinance 2021-154 in ordinance authorizing the amendment of Ordinance 2021-154 self-contained breathing apparatus cylinders and fill station for the fire department. This is a change from the American Rescue Funds to the 2016 0.5% income tax fund capital needs department capital outlay account. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor? Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back on October the 4th of this year, Council passed Ordinance 2021-154 that authorized the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase the said breathing apparatus cylinders, SCBAs, if you will. In Section 2 of that ordinance, it refers to the shall be paid from the American Rescue Plan Fund Revenue Replacement Government Services Fire Department Capital Outlay Account. I'm asking that you change that to the 2016.50% Income Tax Fund Capital Needs Department Capital Outlay Account. One reason is that estimated revenues or actual revenues exceeded estimated revenues by a good amount in this year, and then this will free up the ARPA fund monies for other possible projects.
Very good. Very good. Is there any other questions in regards to the reasoning for it? Question's been called. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 12. We've considered a matter of the amending the ordinance 2021-155, an ordinance authorizing the amendment of 2021-155 for the 2 rear garbage trucks to change from the American Rescue to the 2016 0.5% income tax fund capital needs department capital outlay account. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Finance Director Pileski, I would think this is the same.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, same situation. We had planned to take it out of the American Rescue Plan Fund, but I'm proposing that we switch that to the 2016.50% income tax fund also known as Issue 6 Fund.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Call for the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 13, we've considered a matter of transferring monies from the per municipal court order, an ordinance authorizing the finance director to transfer monies from the Muni Court Security Fund to the Municipal Court Special Collection Fund in the amount of $49,072, and from the Muni Court Security Fund to Legal Research Fund the amount of $27,807. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Upon my request, I asked the Judge Bennett and Judge White to issue a court order authorizing me to do said transfers. They have a couple of funds that are trending in the red, and at the end of the year, if they are in the red, then the independent auditors or the state auditors don't like that too well. So typically what we do is we take money from one of their other funds that are performing better than these two and take care of the balances that are in the red.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Should that have been an emergency since it's end of the year?
Next item on the agenda is we consider the matter of the 2021 permanent appropriation changes. An ordinance authorizing to amend the salary said permanent appropriations per the attached. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor? Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, this time I go through the current appropriations to determine whether there's going to be enough left for the remainder of the year. As you know, we still have one payroll to post after the last council meeting, so it's a matter of going through and making sure there's enough appropriated in the various funds and departments. So most of these are very minor in nature, and most of the funds there's no net change in the overall appropriation level. So not quite sure if you have a copy of that in front of you.
I do.
Okay, so on page 3, you'll see at the bottom is the total for the general fund, and you'll see there's no net change to the general fund. There's a plus 68,518 and a minus 68,518. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Next page, street construction M&R fund, no net change. No net change to state highway fund. Actually, no change to the state highway fund. No net change to this fire pension or police pension funds. Page 5, no net change to the block grant fund. There's a plus 43,500, a minus 43,500. On page 6, there's if you go down to the bottom, that is your American Rescue Plan Act Fund, and earlier tonight we talked about adding $500,000 to the Essential Services Program and the Small Business Program. So you see that there in green at the bottom, plus $500 for each of them. And then if you look at down still in that category. You'll see two figures in red, and that would be the $500,000 for the SCBA units that we're now going to take out of the 2016.50% income tax fund, and a minus $532,000 for the two garbage trucks that we're now going to take out of the 2016.50% income tax fund. Page 7, if you go down to the bottom, there at the very bottom, that this is the 2016.50% income tax fund, and you see the change of $1,032,000, and that is for the two items that we just talked about, the garbage trucks and the breathing apparatus. Page 8, there's two funds toward the middle, Cleveland Street / East Bridge Street and the East Broad Street widening. These expenditures are both federal dollars. Even though we didn't spend the money, we have to record it on our books as a revenue and expense. So I will be doing that before the end of the year. So $153,240 for the Cleveland Street East Bridge design and $398,830 for the East Broad Street widening design. Page 9 is you got a minor changes in the water fund. Page 10, minor changes in the sanitation fund, as well as the wastewater pollution control and stormwater funds. And that about wraps it up.
Okay. So any questions for Mr. Pileski in regards to what was kind of presented here for us for the 2021 permanent appropriations? A lot of those already discussed this evening in regards to some of the apparatus and trucks like you referred to. Any questions, comments?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried. Item number 15, we consider the matter of the 2022 temporary appropriations. An ordinance authorizing the approval of the attached list of the 2022 temporary appropriations. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet. Second by Ms. Davis. Finance Director Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, we are required to, we typically pass a temporary appropriation to start the year out, and the permanent appropriation has to be passed by March 31st of next year. So typically what we do is we take 30% of the prior year permanent appropriation, carry that forward into the temporary, and then also add any outstanding encumbrances that, in this case, this week. Of course, encumbrances are open purchase orders or commitments to pay. So that's the case with most of these funds. The two exceptions, I would say, would be the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, which we know there's $1 million been appropriated for essential services now, and $1 million for small business. So we're carrying forward the unspent monies out of that $1 million into the new year. That would be on page 7 of the temporary appropriation. And we also in there is the $500,000 that we still have yet to pay on the. Actually, I thought we paid for that already. I'm gonna have to check that. I think the fire truck, the $500,000 fire truck, I thought we had already paid for that. So let me double check on that. And if there's a change, then I will make that change and give it to the clerk's office. Okay. But the other one is the 2016.50% income tax fund, which we did differently. So in an attempt to get things moving on the street resurfacing, we try to put together the total budget for the income tax fund. So what we are proposing at this time is appropriating the entire amount for the 10 police officers that we pay out of that fund, plus $295,000 in capital outlay for the first payment on the body cam program. So that's going to be spread out over 5 years. In the Parks and Rec Department, which is under the income tax fund, is the unspent portion of 2021, plus an additional request of, bear with me here one second. Additional request of, well, we're appropriating $2,128,250 in the Parks Department in issue 6, plus $84,381 of encumbrance. So that $2,128,250 would include the amount that they did not spend and get to in 2021, plus their request for 2022. In economic development, appropriating $1,275,000 plus $281,572 in carryover encumbrances. Street repair, appropriating $1,756,000, which would include $250,000 for the Fuller Road pedestrian bridge, and the remainder for street resurfacing, plus $1,078,999 in open encumbrances. That would be the resurfacing program for this year that bills have not been paid on yet. Basic city services, appropriating $805,000 plus $236,466 in open encumbrances. And then in the capital needs department, appropriating $1,582,564 plus encumbrances of $1,769,664, which would include the $500,000 for the breathing apparatus and $532,000 for the garbage trucks, for a total of $3,352,228 in capital needs, and then for a grand total of $12,402,915. So as you know, the tax itself, the estimate was about 6.2 when we first passed this. It's been generating more than that. I believe this year it's closer to 7 million. And then there was unspent or cash that has been unencumbered it's carried over. So the total, I don't have that with me, but I believe the total amount available to appropriate is a little over 13 million, and we're appropriating 12,402,915. I guess if you have any questions about economic development portion, I do have or maybe Kevin has it, the handout from the mayor. I don't know if council has that or not, but.
Yeah, council doesn't have anything in regards to the economic development portion of what's being forecasted over there for that.
Looks like downtown facade program, downtown redevelopment grant, advertising, professional services, and then unspent monies since the inception of the 2016 0.50%. So I believe we had advertised that $500,000 per year would be spent on economic development, and they've not spent. I think there was only 1 year that they actually spent $500,000 under economic development. So bringing that total into this year's budget.
What was that amount, Ted?
For the
economic development
is total is $1,275,000 plus $281,572 of encumbrances for a total of $1,556,572.
Thank you. Any questions for Finance Director Pulaski in regards to the temporary? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pulaski, is this increase it's because the people are working from home in the city and we're benefiting from, or what?
You mean the increase in the actual revenue or estimates? Well, actually, as you know, I'm kind of conservative on my estimates, just to be on the safe side, so we don't spend money that we're not going to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. This year was, it was very hard to estimate because we're starting to come out of COVID, but now going back into it. So there was a drop in revenue in 2020, but 2021, we bounced back rather nicely. As far as folks working at home, that change will probably start occurring in 2022 as the law is being changed. So I believe now that companies that have employees that are staying home are going to be required to no longer withhold for the workplace city, but the residence city. So how that all pans out remains to be seen. I believe that the larger cities like Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Toledo, Cincinnati are going to be hurt the most by this, but remains to be seen with a city like ours. So again, I'll take a very cautious approach to my estimates for this year and see how it pans out, but it was a good year this year for income tax.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, you know I'm going to ask. Can I have more money for streets?
Pardon me?
Is there any more money for streets? Can we increase the streets budget?
I believe there's like $1 million left that's not appropriated. So if we look at the amount available to appropriate and what we appropriated here, there's still $1 million left to go.
And how much is there for this year? That hasn't been decided yet?
So that's the amount left in 2022 that has not been decided yet.
Just $1 million?
$1 million more.
Oh.
$1 million more, yeah. So there's $1 million left to appropriate.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
One thing that's not in here is, I don't know what's going to happen with the Shane building, but I believe they opened bids on the demo of Shane recently, so that's something we may have to consider moving forward out of the Issue 6 fund.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's many of a conversation that's need to be had here soon to kind of direct those. But is any other questions in regards to the 2022 budget that's being proposed?
And also, if you take a look at the 2016.50% fund, that's kind of like the permanent, but it can be amended at any time. We're just trying to get it off the ground quicker so you can start your street resurfacing quicker and start the parks projects quicker.
Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried. Okay, at this time, we're going to go back to item number 6, is the matter of negotiating the AFSCME contract. At this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to go into executive session for labor negotiations and personnel matters with possible action to follow. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
Who made the motion?
Mr. Baird.
Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillette. The roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote, Jack Baird.
Aye.
Mark Jesse. Aye. Brenda Davis. Aye. Phil Tillett.
Aye.
And Dick Stewart.
Aye. At this time, could I ask the general public?
Yeah. Deal day.
I've already talked to Kevin. I'm leaving.